Hello, welcome to Learning to Drum. I'm your host, Adam Tevlin. We are in week 17, episode 14. And last week we learned about the double stroke roll and the different ways to practice it. And this week I said, let's try to get at 90 beats per minute at the 8th note level. So grab your sticks and practice pad and let's get started. All right, so what we're going to do is right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. And we could take off the one there. So yeah, then we can start at any time. Here we go. 1, 2, right, right. 1, 2, ready, and go in. You want to feel those free strokes on that first initial attack. The second one is a downstroke or a controlled stroke. So hopefully you're doing that somewhat with ease. Okay. Oops. Okay. Try to keep it in line with the metronome. Right? Okay, here we go. All right. That wasn't too much of a challenge. I try to make it easy so that way there is some reward. But I think probably by now you're a little bit faster than that. And I think we could try to shoot for 120 next week. Now, I did mention the different ways to practice the double stroke roll. And the one thing that I didn't mention is playing it backwards. That's right. Okay, so just like what we did with the single stroke roll, I'm holding my arms, my forearms, parallel to the ground. And I'm just going to relax my fingers and drop my sticks. Now I'm going to go ahead and try the double stroke roll backwards. And this is going to work out our fingers, right? Okay, a lot of times I'll walk through the house or before a gig and I'm just, singles and doubles. Same thing with the pillow. I'm mostly doing singles and doubles on that. You can practice other rudiments backwards. As a matter of fact, I do myself. But really those two rudiments, the single and the double stroke roll, are really helping you utilize your fingers and making sure you work twice as hard in half the amount of time, just like the pillow would. Try that on your own. Walk around the house. As long as you're doing it correctly, you got the correct grip, right? I think I have a fly in the room. Okay. All right. His days are numbered. Okay. So you can see how that looks, right? Okay, cool. That is the double stroke roll, and eventually, again, we want to make sure that we can play it eventually, okay? Okay, but not right now. I understand that's not going to get there, and the only way you can get there is by really strengthening up your wrist and finger muscles, because you're now able to catch up, or keep up rather, with the rebound of the drum. Because if you're not able, if those muscles aren't there, you're not going to be able to keep up with that rebound, and therefore you might end up kind of crushing things, and right? So we want to make sure we can keep up at any level of speed. Now the slower we go, the more controlled I am. The faster I am, the more I'm employing those fingers and the rebound, of course, off the pad. All right, so going on, now our next music lesson, reading music, and that's playing solo number 2. Now, there's some things that we need to learn about this at first. For instance, we're having some new dynamic levels, and the first one that we see here is FF or fortissimo, which indicates to play very loud. So the gamma of dynamics that we have so far from softest to loudest are pianissimo or double P, piano, which is soft, and then forte, which is loud, and fortissimo, double F, which is really loud. Okay, that's the gamma that we have, that's the spectrum, and how soft is too soft or how loud is too loud? Well, it's very relative when you're actually playing with other musicians. So when you're in an ensemble playing with other musicians, you're going to make sure that you're listening to the other people that are playing loud. Are you overpowering them? Are you playing louder and you can't hear them? Usually percussion or drums ends up having to play on the softer side. So the flute player's forte or fortissimo might be different than that of the drums or percussion at forte or fortissimo, okay? For right now, if you want to do the inch system, now we said that piano might be at, 1 inch in height, maybe a little bit more. And then we have the pianissimo that could be less than that, maybe a half of an inch. And so that might sound like this. Let's try even softer. Okay, so and then piano. There we go. And then forte and fortissimo. Okay, so that's probably a half inch, 10 inches, 12 inches. It doesn't have to be exact, but that gives you an idea on how much force you're going to have to exert to make sure you can get that dynamic level. Let's go ahead and moving on to poco a poco, which means little by little. So over a series of measures, when you're playing and you're either getting loud or you're getting soft, there could be dynamic marking mean poco a poco, which means little by little. So instead of having the decrescendo spanning out for all those measures or the crescendo spanning out all those measures, this is something that they can do in place of that, so that way it's like not that confusing. I know in solo number 1 it got on the borderline where I could have said poco a poco, but I chose not to. And so this solo, we're going to use that at the very end. You can see that you have a total of 8 measures at the very end of that solo, from pianissimo all the way up to fortissimo. Okay, so going on in some of the different things that we've discussed as far as dynamics, we also have some other repeat endings that we want to talk about, which is the first, second, and sometimes third ending. Usually I find that there's only first or second endings, but sometimes I'll have a third or even a fourth ending. Regardless of what that is, whatever the last measure that you're playing, you're going to skip over to the next one. So for instance, in measures 13 through 20, that is a repeated section. What you see on that of the last measures of that repeat is the bracket and the number 1. That is the first ending. And then after we played that first ending, we repeat it and go back to the beginning of that repeat section, back to measure 13. And instead of playing measure 20, we're now going to play measure 21. Obviously, there are 2 different endings. So why do they do this? Why do they have you get confused and you get lost and all that stuff? Well, it's not really to confuse you. It's just basically a shorthand way of writing music. In other words, they want you to play most of that stuff, but at the very end, they just want a little something different, okay? And this is very, very typical in music, especially popular tunes. There might be like just a little bit of a different ending on that repeat section. So another symbol that we're realizing is tempo, which is, as we see here, we can see andante, quarter note equals 90 beats per minute. What that means is at a walking pace. Depending on the source that you're looking at, it's typically between tempos 76 to 108 beats per minute. Okay, so I'm going to play this at 90 beats per minute. This is the tempo. Now we're not going to play that together at 90 beats per minute because we're going to do the first half at let's say 60 or 65. There we go. 1, 2, 1 and 2, and here I go. And 1. There it is. At 90 beats per minute. We're going to go through this bit by bit, 4 measures at a time, and like I said, we're going to be doing it at 60. You think you can do it at 65 beats per minute? Oh, let's try. Okay. There we go. Okay, and I'll count you off. We'll start out with the first 4 measures. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 1 and 2, and here we go. And 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and good. All right. So at the beginning, you see that the flam taps have accents at the beginning of them. Not all the time they're played like that, as we're going to see in measure 10. So I'm going to take it actually at the last measure of what we just played, which is measure 4, which is at fortissimo, and then we're going to continue on through measure 5 through 8. The reason why I'm doing that, so you can see the contrast between fortissimo and forte. So here we go at measure 4. 1 and 2, and here we go. And 4, and again. Now drop it down. 1, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay, great. Now that's went a little bit more ahead there. It's actually at measure 9, but that's okay. So I wanted to finish out that crescendo. And how did you folks do in that? Okay, not okay? Again, you can always go back and rewatch this. You don't have to really get it on the first try. You know, it's totally at your own pace. We're going to go ahead and continue on to measures 9 through 12. So here we go. Measure 9, 2, and here we forte, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and flam, tap, flam, tap, flam. And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2. Okay, so notice how the flam taps in measure 10 didn't have the accent. So what I do when I'm not having an accent in a flam is my grace note might just be a little bit higher. So I'm not sounding like I'm having an accent. You remember how we first learned the flams, they were very strict, right? Well, we can start breaking apart the gelatin mold now. And in those flam taps, right? Okay, let me do that again for you at measure 9. We'll do that one more time so we can all get it. Measure 9. Here we go. Forte. 1 and 2, and here we go. And 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, so you can see how that works. Going down to pianissimo. Okay, going on is now our repeated section. And that repeated section again is going to have a first and a second ending. We're going to skip over that first on the second time playing it. So hopefully you can keep up. If not, that's okay. You can go back and watch. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 1 and 2, and here we go. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. A little louder. 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and repeat. And 2, 15. And 2 and 3. A little louder again. And 2. 4. And second ending. And there we go. Okay. Didn't play it perfectly. That's okay. And if you didn't play it perfectly either, that's okay. You're never going to play anything perfectly. I guarantee it. It's just not going to happen. If any musician says, I played something perfectly, they're deceiving themselves. There's always going to be something that you can do better. So just keep that in mind. Don't get discouraged, okay? All right. We went through the first pretty much half of the solo, the first 20 measures. We're going to finish out the rest, and I encourage you to go back and review this and try to play along with me if you want to watch the episode again. And remember to practice on the other stuff that you've been doing, like the 8 on the hand, the accent exercise on one hand. That's very important. Keeping up with those warm-ups, because getting greater speeds gives you greater ability and the ability to play more stuff. And I don't know about you, but I like playing a lot of stuff. I want to make sure that I have the ability to play whatever I want to play, and I'm sure you do too. And so next week, go ahead and take a look at that rest of the solo number 2. See if you can do it on your own. If you need to slow it down, if 65 was too fast, go back to 40 or 50, whichever you prefer. But the important thing is to make sure to count. And if you don't count, you're not going to know where you're at in the measure. And that's why, of course, I counted when we went over it at 65 beats per minute. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself on this episode of Learning to Drum, episode 14. And we're creeping up almost on the half of the year there. And I'm your host. Thanks for joining me once again. And always remember to keep swinging those sticks.